Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Racha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And here we're starting to see some headlines here about things on the cyber threat, side of things. As this came out today, actually, article here about pro-Iranian hackers breaching U.S. infrastructure. And what's interesting about this is some of the types of infrastructure that they are, breaching aren't just things like maybe just banks or, supermarket or something like that. But these are critical infrastructure, okay, which makes this a matter of concern. But it says here, pro-Iranian hackers have breached critical U.S. infrastructure, according to a joint warning issued Tuesday by several federal agencies. The advisory came only hours ahead of President Donald Trump's Tuesday deadline for Iran, warning that a whole civilization will die tonight if Iran refuses to open the Strait of Hormuz to oil traffic. Trump later suspended the attack following negotiations mediated by Pakistan. Iranian cyber attacks targeting U.S. organizations have increased recently with the ongoing war against Iran. Right? Let's not forget about that, right? Because they may not, as it stands right now, they may not be able to reach U.S. with, missiles at the moment, but they can reach through the digital side of things, which can cause a lot of damage. Because over the years, there have been warnings about the vulnerabilities in U.S. critical infrastructure, which, if exploited, can do a lot of damage. In the latest breach, hackers caused disruptions through malicious interactions on project files and data displays in organizations across multiple U.S. critical infrastructure sectors, including government services and facilities, local municipalities, water and waste systems, and energy infrastructure. And so a lot of the systems that keep your day-to-day going, they've been digitalized, right? Because it just makes things easier, to automate certain tasks and to reduce the manual labor within, these certain operations. But that also comes with a cost, right? The cost is now it's more vulnerable to be hacked, right? And to be exploited, to be, disrupted. And based on what we're seeing here, if they wanted to, they could, say they had the go-ahead, they could launch a very dangerous and crippling attack on U.S. critical infrastructure. And this isn't the first time warnings like this have come out, right? And it hasn't been just pertinent to Iran or pro-Iranian hackers, but also China, right? Chinese hackers and so on. So they definitely have a footing here that people should be looking at as well. Hackers exploited vulnerabilities in internet-connected devices used to control machinery in the key U.S. sectors. In a few cases, this activity has resulted in operational disruption and financial loss, reads the advisory, which was issued by the FBI. Oh, and, all these other agencies that are listed here. See what else we have here. It says U.S. entities that use the impacted devices, including programmable logic controllers or PLCs from Rockwell Automation's Allen Bradley brand, are advised to check their cyber defenses, apply safety measures listed in the warning, and review activity on their networks for indications that they were compromised to avoid the risk of further breaches. Although the agencies specifically named the Rockwell Automation devices, they said other brands could have been affected as well. Okay, so this is what you have going on here. It's these things, they appear to be out of nowhere, but these are all part of measures that are taken, right, by the adversaries of the U.S. and they sometimes they'll hack into civilian devices, IoT devices, and use those as proxy devices to launch certain attacks from. So your computer, here it is, you're thinking you're using it, and it just started acting slow out of nowhere. I'm not sure what's going on, whatever. Or your phone, not realizing maybe there's some bug that's downloaded on it, some software on there, or malware that is just sitting there waiting to partake in an attack that can be launched against certain, infrastructure. So you have that to look forward to. Next, we have another interesting one here. This is in Canada, right, where you have liberals advancing a bill here. I believe now it's going to the Senate over there. But this bill that could criminalize quoting the Bible as hate speech. Okay. And we've been talking about this for a while, but it goes to show you, right, the anti-messianic, holy, anti-biblical world that we live in. I mean, if you're in a world where they can't even define to you what a woman is, this shouldn't even come as a surprise. It says here, Canada is barreling toward a chilling new reality where quoting certain Bible passages could be treated as a criminal hate speech offense. So what this is telling you is that, like the scriptures, like the Lord said, the world, if the world hated me, it will hate you too. And we live in an ungodly world, right? So of course they're gonna come out with something like this. I mean, for all the centuries that the Bible has been out, this is it's no surprise that at this point in time they're pushing towards a bill like this. All right. So it says here, Bill C9, the so-called Combating Hate Act. So what they're saying here is, remember, this doesn't say interpretation; it says quoting. So what they're saying here is they're making a way to be able to classify certain Bible passages as hate speech. But there's hate in almost every facet of this world, right? But when it gets to somebody being offended by it, then it has to be classified as hate speech. But what's the inverse of that? Because this is mainly against people that are like of the alternative lifestyle community, and so on and so forth. Right? People that take offense to this and yada yada yada. But all the more reason why the Most High is going to bring judgment upon this world anyway. So it says here. This act cleared the House of Commons on March 25th and now moves to the Senate. Critics say the legislation guts a decades-old legal safeguard that protected sincere religious expression, handing prosecutors new tools to target Christians and other believers who dare reference holy texts on topics like sexuality. See that? And it's not just going to be the Bible or so-called Christians that are affected, because that's not the only belief that can fall under this this category here. So Canada just criminalized the Bible. BC-9 has passed. Quoting scripture on marriage, sin, or God's design for sexuality can now be prosecuted as willful promotion of hatred. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Here it is. The country's on the precipice, the world, of a world war, that is going to it's going to go nuclear. It's going to cause major damage. But these guys are busy over here worrying about promoting a bill to ban or prosecute you for quoting certain scriptures on marriage, sin, or hey, because sometimes in weddings, right? They do quote certain passages, certain scriptures, if it's like a Christian wedding and so on, right? So imagine that. Here it is, the priest is trying to officiate the wedding, and he goes and quotes a certain precept, and then somebody in the audience is offended, and now he's being prosecuted. He's being prosecuted for willful promotion of hatred. Anyway, The bill introduced last September by Liberal Justice Minister and Attorney General Sean Fraser eliminates sections 319.3b and 319.3.1b of the Canadian Criminal Code. Those provisions had long stated that a person could not be convicted of hate speech if they expressed or attempted to establish by an argument an opinion on a religious subject or an opinion based on a belief in a religious text. Well, he said, yeah, let's get rid of that. Let me jump down here and see what we got on here. Yeah, it says Liberal MP Mark Miller made the threat explicit during an October House Justice Committee hearing. I don't understand how the concept of good faith could be invoked if someone were literally invoking a passage from, in this case, the Bible, though there are other religious texts that say the same thing, Miller said. He continued, how do we somehow constitute this as being said in good faith? Clearly, there are situations in these texts where statements are hateful. They should not be used to invoke or be a defense. Well, that's very interesting that he says that, because pretty sure his hypocritical ass has made statements in his life that are hateful. You have read books, right? In that case, and as a matter of fact, you should really then say any book, any text, any movie, any TV show, any skit that has what was his word? Situations where the statements that are made are hateful, that should also then be looked at, right? That should be classified and, not classified, but that should be set apart and scrutinized. And guess what? It may sound like, jokingly now, but where do you think the next direction they're gonna head in is? If you go back and you look at the Boondocks, for example, right? You go back and watch that TV show, The Boondocks, right? Watch the old seasons, and as you're watching it, you'll start to, in your head be like, wow, that's crazy. I can't believe they even aired that, or they allowed that to air. Not that it's like anything out of pocket, but because over the years, because when I watched it years ago, back when it was out, it was regular, right? It was like, oh, it was funny, regular stuff. But watching it again today with how society has been softened and everything is being canceled, or, you have to be politically correct for this and that and this and that and this and that. Now, all of a sudden, watching the same show, these things jump out at you. So right now they're talking about, trying to push this bill here for biblical or religious texts that there are statements that are hateful in certain parts in here. And what's interesting is they're not even going to refer to statements of like explicit. I mean, you have one side that's opposing another side, right? And they're maybe in war, or they're threatening each other, or something of that sort. No. They're going to go for the statements that are dealing with, like we read above, marriage or sin, thou shalt not do this and that. And they're going to call that the hateful part, because some alternative lifestyle person is offended by hearing that. Bruh. Miller specifically cited passages in Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Romans as examples. Guess what? Romans quotes the Old Testament a lot, including the laws. Leviticus contains a good portion of the laws, and Deuteronomy does so as well. So what do you think he's referring to here? He's not referring to when the Lord told Joshua, hey, go in there and slay all men, women, and children in there. No, that's fine. That's not the kind of hate we're looking for here. Not the parts where the Lord explicitly says, I hated Esau, right? And I love Jacob. No. That part we're not really looking at. The parts that say you cannot do this. Two men cannot lie down. Man should not lie down with mankind as womankind. That's where they're going. That's what they want. That's the real hate. Nigga, you are in a world created by a God who says, this is my world. This is how you ought to live. This is the standard of living. You're going to turn around and say, no, that's hate. So we got to ban that. And then they wonder why it is that the Lord is bringing judgments on the earth today. Next, we have here, right, back on some more. I mean, that's also a prophecy, right? Because eventually, that's just giving you a taste of the direction that they're headed in, to where eventually they're gonna make it so this the scriptures and the preachings that we even teach now is it's gonna be no more, and that's gonna be when the Lord gives the go ahead, right? Because that's also part of biblical prophecy concerning the famine of the word, of the hearing of the word. So Trump mauls punishing NATO allies by pulling U.S. troops over lack of Iran help. Now, if you're wondering why all of a sudden is this friction that's growing stronger, ever so stronger, between NATO and the United States, what's going on here, right? What's all this back and forth, and we're not doing this, we're not doing that. Okay, we're gonna punish you and all this. Why is that happening? Well, it's happening because it's going to lead to the fulfillment of Revelation, the 17th chapter, where these same NATO allies get to the point where they become enemies. All right. They become enemies of the U.S. to the point where in this war, which once it sparks back up again and then it starts to, expand and reaches its heightened peak, these same ex-allies, because that's what they would become, will be partakers of those that shoot missiles on Babylon, on the U.S. Okay, so this is all just the prerequisites that eventually lead to that, the bad blood, the separation, and then eventually that's where it's going to end up. So it's not by coincidence that the Lord is having this happen now. So it says the Trump White House is mulling ways to punish NATO allies for not stepping up to support the U.S.-Iran campaign and for staying on the sidelines after Trump's repeat appeals to create a coalition to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. See, he thought that he was going to come in there and say, look, we're the ones we run NATO. So when we tell you go, you go. He thought he was the homelander of NATO, right? Yeah, you go ahead and you do this, and And then he realized that these NATO countries are saying, no, we're not going to do that. We don't want to do that. So, yeah, good luck with that. And by the way, forgot to mention, you will not be using our airspace. No, you will not be doing anything of that sort. This is you. This is all you. You go and take care of it. So he's like, what the hell is going on here? No. You need to be punished for it. Right? So because that's that look being more stout than his fellows. That's that pride that oozes off of them. In fact, Trump is a perfect, he's like Babylon personified. Okay? When you read certain scriptures and it talks about the pride, when you read Isaiah 47, that is describing Babylon, but we know Babylon, which is this place, is inanimate, right? It's a country, it's a city, you could say, right? A big giant city. But if you were to personify it, it would be like Trump. That's my perspective on it. But anyway, it says here, this could include pulling protective American forces and U.S. military hardware from NATO partner countries. It would impact certain countries, reports say. The Wall Street Journal writes in a fresh Wednesday report, the proposal would involve moving U.S. troops out of North Atlantic Treaty Organization member countries deemed unhelpful to the Iran war, or the Iran war effort, and station them in countries that were more supportive of the U.S. military campaign. So basically what he's saying is, don't stand for what you think is right. Stand for what I think is right. And then you'll be all right. If not, there'll be consequences. So what's right should be determined by his moral compass. And if it says wrong, if his moral compass says south, then everything is south. If it says east, then it has to be east. The proposal would fall far short of President Trump's recent threats to fully withdraw the U.S. from the alliance, which by law he can't do without Congress. And that's the thing about him, right? He can be very erratic, but he likes to, talk big, sometimes too big to accomplish. Okay, but that's the spirit of your president. Okay, according to Moore, the plan has circulated and gained support among senior administration officials in recent weeks. Is Slakia, the plan which has circulated and gained support among senior administration officials in recent weeks, is early in conception and one of several the White House is discussing to punish NATO. So that's going to be interesting to see. But all these things, right, from the pro-Iranian hackers breaching infrastructure, the advancing of bills like this to criminalize quoting the Bible, the mulling of ideas to punish NATO. These are all signs. These are all partial signs because these all lead to fulfillment of prophecy, right? So when we see these things, this is Ecclesiasticus 5:15. It says, "Be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or small." So when we see these things, somebody, well, why should I care? Why does an article like this matter? It sounds like a small thing. What does it have to do with you? But it's about what it's in preparation for. Okay, what it's in preparation for, which is the fulfillment of prophecy. So what seems like a small matter now is in preparation for a much bigger and greater matter. Okay, when you start seeing smoke, you see birds flying from one direction in mass to another, you hear a loud sound, you know that something is coming, right? So that's what we're seeing here. These are the signs. All right, these are the signs right here, and they let us know that we're even closer to the end goal, right? The fulfillment of what these and eventually culminate to, than much people expect. And what that also means is to continue to stay in the right spirit, right, and realize that there isn't much time left, right? So I mean, you got to keep doing what you're doing, but stay in the right spirit and be ready, be circumspect, as the scriptures say. So with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak Wadash. And until next time, Shalom.